All right, we're live. There we are.
Oh my
As
God!
you can
Thank
see, we
goodness.
have a special guest. Over to my side here is Stackataka. And then right above me, you guys know him, you love him. It's Alex Underhill. Mike is going to start us off with his usual spiel. So take it away, Mike.
Usual spiel number 12. We are on
Number
episode 12 of the PokéStew with Mike and Jen, and tonight, Mr.
Wait.
Alex Underhill. 12. Yeah, Jen, don't do math. All
It's
right,
bigger than this.
Yeah, two more fingers than that. So our usual disclaimer. Tonight on the 12th episode of the PokéStew, you're going to hear the opinions of the three of us. None of the three of us work for the Pokemon Company, the Pokemon Company International Game Freak, Nintendo, or any of those other things affiliated with the Pokemon and all the people that actually make money off of Pokemon. So again, everything you hear is our opinions and our opinions only, although we will back it up with experiences, forethought, and subtle research across the internet.
Subtle research across the internet. I mean, that's
Yes.
basically what we were doing last week, and that's kind of the whole premise of this show. But before we get started with our topic, everybody say hi to Alex, and thanks so much for being on here. Mike and I have been wanting to get you on the show for some time now, and it just kind of worked out this way. Last week I started kind of getting some fact-finding going on the Twitters and on Facebook, and
The Twitters?
the tweeters, and Alex actually reached out to me with some feedback, and I said, this is pretty fortuitous because Mike and I want you on the show, and so this is a great topic to have you on because we
Absolutely.
definitely want to have a player perspective in on this. So Mike and I are both parents. We're also both organizers, judges, and now we also have. I mean, we both play, but not at any kind of a high level. So we're happy to welcome Alex for his opinion. So Alex, if you want to give us kind of like an intro to you, how you got started with Pokemon, and kind of your situation.
So, just wanted to say thanks for having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure. But I started back in 2014 when I went to U.S. Nationals. But before that, it was all kinds of weird because the event finder is not the best, is what I always tell people when I started. And so, like, I ended up at like a league with a bunch of like 10-year-olds where they were all playing with their in-game teams, and they were like, battle us, and I was like, oh, okay, this is not what I'm looking for. Then I ended up at like a TCG league, and so it took me a while before I could actually play VGC. I don't know, just I think figuring it out could be made a little bit easier, so I always talk about that when I talk about when I started. I'm sure it's a bit better today, but when I did 2014 Nats, and that was a lot of fun just because walking in, like, it just kind of overwhelmed me. There was just so many Pokemon fans there. They have the giant Pikachu and stuff like that, and so it's really cool. That's what kind of like sucked me in. And for all of 2014 going on into 2015, I didn't really do anything impressive until 2015 Nats was actually the first event I'd ever cut, despite attending premier challenges and stuff like that. For some reason, it didn't click until 2015 Nats. And then from there, I've done some other things like cut a regional. I've won 2 regionals since then, so I guess those are kind of big deals. And now this season, I will probably end up being one of the snowball for the people who know what the snowball is. So I'll probably be traveling around a lot, spending way too much time playing Pokemon and stressing about how everybody else is doing. So wish me luck on that, but that's pretty much a quick summary of my Pokemon career.
Absolutely, definitely good luck to you. And I know, just really quickly with the snowball, that invite to or trip to Australia has been locked in, and so I assume you're one of the top names in there.
Yeah, I should be in 5th, and I don't think anything's going to change that. So,
Yeah, I think that was finalized the week after San Jose, so that should be locked in. So congratulations on that. That's fantastic. Is there anyone, just really quickly, is there anyone that snowballed last year that is in the top? Because I noticed that there were a lot of new names up there.
it seems like I think all of the players are new except for one, which is Ashton. Ashton
Yeah.
was, I mean, that's the thing is I can't think of exactly who the snowball was through every
Right, right.
instance because, like, I know there were players on it who eventually fell off. Like, I know Ashton, I think, wasn't on it to go to
He wasn't.
Australia, but I think he went to Australia anyway. He ended up, getting on it after Brazil, and then he remained on it. and so he's still going to be on it. But like players like Tommy was on it since pretty much the beginning. Gavin, I know, jumped on at a later point, and so it's kind of tough to say who is still on it. But I'm pretty sure Ashton is like the only returning member.
The sole holdout from the end of last season, as it were.
Yeah. And I think as we get a little bit later into the show too, we're gonna talk about snowballing for those that uninitiated. But I'm pretty sure most of the people actually watching understand that term and what we mean by that and the impacts. And
I like calling it the CP
things.
train.
The
All aboard the CP train. Woo!
Some of
Kind
us
of like
are
a
like
meal
dragging
ticket
behind
train,
the caboose.
really.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's us that are hanging on to the rail, the back of the caboose, getting drug on the tracks behind.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be me.
So
Bloody
so
and beaten.
Bloody and beaten for sure. That's both of us.
Hey, one more thing too before we get too far into the show.
One more thing or two more things?
One more thing I can't count. Okay, one thing. Damn you. Anyways, today is a very special day too.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Josh Massey's birthday is today.
Oh, that's fantastic. I totally forgot about that. Happy birthday.
Shout-outs.
Happy birthday to Josh Massey.
Josh Massey!
Josh
Happy
Massey!
birthday to
Josh Massey!
this guy I don't know.
You know Josh
Josh,
Massey.
you know Josh. He's the bearded
You know
wonder
Josh.
from Pokemon.
With the cat ears?
No.
Oh.
That's a different bearded wonder.
There's so many guys with beards in the community now.
He's,
I
No,
he's
probably
the
would
guy-
recognize him.
Josh
He's the guy
actually
that
works
start-
for Pokemon, and he's done side events for the past couple of years. And before he worked for Pokemon, he was an organizer and a league leader, I think in Texas, and then before that, somewhere in the Midwest.
Minnesota.
There you go, Minnesota. Josh is awesome. He's a really big advocate for VG, and he puts in a lot of hard work for this community. Unsung hero, as I will refer to him, because as you know, Alex just proved, not everybody knows his name, but he definitely cares a great deal about this community. And so, happy birthday to Josh.
Yes. All right. Sorry.
No,
Again,
that's cool. I'm glad
Alex,
you
we're gonna
reminded
get
us.
sidetracked all kinds of times.
That's all right.
Sidetrack number one.
This is what we do: stack attack a sidetrack.
Mhm.
Attack a sidetrack. Wow. That's
I
like a
should
brush
have
a brush a
made my
toothbrush.
stack attacka flash when we do stack attacka, but whatever. I'll do that next week. I don't even know. I stole somebody's picture. I'm an awful person. But anyway, to get back to the reason for tonight's stream, besides us getting
Banter.
sidetracked and harassing Alex. So if you have been following any kind of social media in the last week, you know that what is it, Memphis TCG Regional hit 1,000 players last week.
I'll give you the exact number right now, so I have the webpage up and ready to go.
So
live roster TCG Memphis has hold on, that was VGC. So TCG refresh the page. All right. TCG has a total of 1,160 players. Of that, 986 are masters.
oh my god.
There are 118 senior players, and there are 56 TCG juniors. Okay,
So
56 juniors. Now,
this was brought up last week, I think right about as they hit 1,000, and it was kind of brought to light that VG numbers are anemic, I'll say, compared to the TCG numbers. VGC, I think as a whole, does not beat the seniors numbers for TCG.
no, they do.
Do they
So-
they beat it now? Because that was
So-
He's got
Mike's
the
that was
numbers.
Mike's
See?
line the entire weekend. Well, you know, VGC numbers is not beating TCG seniors.
So the VG numbers, we have a total, all three divisions, 146 players. Okay. In the Masters divisions, there's 122. So just this afternoon, we've managed to get 3 more Masters than the TCG senior division players in the Masters. So congratulations, Masters. You beat the TCG senior numbers. So good on you there. Senior divisions for video game, there are 15, 1-5. And
That's a
our
big number,
junior-
actually.
Yeah, our juniors now have 9 players.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same 9 juniors that go to every tournament. I am not convinced that they actually exist. I think they're holograms. Because there's always 9 of
interesting
them.
Point, though. Interesting point with 9. Oh, God, I got to pull this graphic up here. So, regional CP, I just put up
Wait,
for my viewers
you
here.
have a new graphic? So head on over to the Summit City Gym section of your multi-Twitch tab because Mike has a... Or if you... Oh, no, never mind. You don't have to do that because you have both on the screen because I'm an idiot. Anyway,
Yeah,
Mike's got a new graphic on.
But most of the people that are watching too probably already have this chart memorized, but I'm too old and dumb. So if you look at the placements for the championship point distribution with 9 juniors, that means 8 juniors are getting points and 1 junior goes home with 0.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
1 junior.
Yeah.
0 points. Okay. Abysmal.
Wait, so at the regional level, what is the kicker for top 8? 0?
It's kicker for top 8 is 0,
0.
And then for top 16, I think it's
48, 40, something like that.
40 something.
If it's 40, it's 48 because they went like 24, 48, and then like 100, 200. That's how they're doing it this year.
Right,
it's 48 players to get 9 through 16 getting points.
So the first announcement that I want to make is please stop waiting to register VGC players. So just a kind of heads up on this. Organizers start off with a head count, right? And it's a general event head count. And this has a lot of factors to take into account, including like fire safety codes, amount of chairs the event has available and table space, etc., things like that. And then there's other factors like available judging and things like that. And so an event will start off with a number. That doesn't necessarily mean that 75 to 90% of those are in the TCG bucket. They just start off with a number. And then as that goes, the chart will shift based on the registration numbers. And so TCG historically registers up front and often and continuously. And so they are able to hit 1,100 players because A, the venue can hold that many, and B, the demand is there. When the demand is on one side, not on the other, obviously they're going to allow that balance of attendance to shift to one side. And then when you get to VGC and you guys are waiting until the last 2 weeks or the last week to register, sorry guys, when they hit that fire safety number or the number that the event can handle, that max capacity, there's nothing they can do. And you can complain until you're blue in the face about, oh, we'll get a larger venue, do this, do that. If you're not registering and securing those seats early on, they're going to go to the place where they're in demand. They're going to go over to the TCG side. And so, you know, without giving out, out any trade secrets or whatever, there is a maximum number of seats that are available at a tournament. Like maybe the organizer can retool their chart if they have extra space. I know Patty was able to do it at Hartford because she had a large room available, but not every regional venue is created equal. Not every not every area has a huge venue that they can call upon, that's cost effective for them. So the number one thing that we should be taking away from this before we even start talking about how else we can improve attendance is register early. The minute that goes live, or a week, within the first week, register so that we get the 100 or the 200 and they hold a little bit more numbers for us. You guys can't say, oh, well, we didn't know when this regional was happening. Yeah, they advertised this months ago. We've known the entire U.S. circuit, or North America circuit for quite some time now. So you have had time to plan these things out. You've had time to reserve your flights and your hotels, make your plans with your friends if you're flying down or whatever, crash on somebody's floor. So, there's really no excuse at this point. But
now, didn't just in the last day or two, St. Louis posted their registration links. Dallas posted their registration links,
and Portland.
Dallas was up, I think, a while ago because I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Dallas is up because I've had Ian registered for months now.
Yeah, Dallas has been up, but
Patrick is actually saying Collinsville and Charlotte are both live.
There you go. Those are the two.
So Portland is
right
up.
Now,
Portland
the next
is up.
3
Collinsville, Dallas, Portland, Charlotte.
Four?
So basically,
The
pretty
next
much
four
getting
regionals are
into
already up.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think the only regional that's kind of a mystery at this point is Costa Mesa, and I know that the organizer is working hard on that, but I'm not.
Toronto,
Toronto not until a while ago.
February.
No,
February,
no,
March.
I thought that
Oh,
was
see, yeah,
later.
it's later. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm
so
old.
to task. I will put up the link for the Google Doc. Like I mentioned earlier, sorry about the screen's going nuts. I still haven't figured out how to work that thing. Up there it goes again. Anyway, there is a Google Doc in my chat there that basically links to notes that I've taken based on all of the feedback we've gotten from Twitter, from Facebook, and then from a couple of Reddit posts that went up. One was actually posted yesterday or the day before by Phil, as you guys know, Boom Guy from Australia. And then I posted another one on Stunfisk earlier today. But basically, in response to the 1,000-person TCG, we kind of wanted to see if there were any ideas in the community on why this was happening to TCG and not VG, and what the community at large, parents, organizers, players, judges, thought we could do to entice new players or help new players stay within the community. And then what we all thought that organizers could do at the regional level to attract more players. And so if you want to follow along with the discussion for tonight, and the reason that we have Alex with us, it's in that Google Doc there. So Mike, I guess we'll start off with the first topic on there, and that was Phil's post about why have you decided not to attend events anymore. And so I think I'm going to kick this over to Alex as a player perspective. Why do you think players are not attending? What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think things that hurt the hurt VGC's attendance are one, that the game only has like a certain like population of people that it can really pull from to get people into it. Like if I wanted to get a friend into VGC, they have to be a fan of Pokemon. They have to understand what Pokemon is. Because I have like a couple of friends who are fans of video games, but they don't really play Pokemon, so they don't have memorized all 800 Pokemon. They don't have the type chart memorized. They don't know all the 40 to 50 moves that every Pokemon learns. And so this like knowledge barrier can really keep people from getting into it. And so that's something that I think really like hurts is that it's really tough to just get any random person, anyone who's just like your friend, but they don't have any kind of Pokemon background. The good thing is that Pokemon has such a large fan base. There are so many people who are fans of Pokemon that there are a lot of people that we can pull from, people who are familiar with Pokemon. And so that's something that does kind of save it, but it can be really intimidating to just learn so much information before you can even like begin to start battling, something like that.
Right. And people do talk about the barrier for entry, but they never really actually mention that point of it. So that was a good point for Alex to bring up. The barrier for entry, usually in common terms, is how difficult it is for somebody to get started in the game in terms of getting a competitive team. But it's also, like Alex said, that inherent knowledge that as Pokemon fans we all have, that kind of comes with the territory.
And so along that lines, like you said, a lot of people do mention breeding, and that's just, it's always going to be a factor. I'm one of the people who advocates that we should like see some kind of in-game showdown feature. That would be great. Just something, even if it was just for practice and I still had to breed my Pokemon in-game, it would still just invite so many people to try competitive battling, because they wouldn't have to create a team and then figure out a way to play with other people. Like BattleSpot does exist, but if they were able to like see like, oh man, I keep getting crushed by this guy with Kangaskhan, Tapu Fini, blah blah blah, and something like that, maybe I'll make a team with Kangaskhan and Tapu Fini and see why it's good. They could either go breed it, play with it, find out that they don't like it, or like if they had some kind of simulator in game like Showdown, they could just type it in, whatever, tap it in on the touchpad or something, and they'd have those Pokemon just hop on and give things a go. We're moving in the right direction with QR teams, but I don't think it's quite enough because like not everyone's willing to create QR teams for people, and not all the teams up there are going to be exactly what you're looking for. They're teams with set EVs, set IVs, set moves, set abilities and items and stuff like that. Where if you said like, "Oh, I like that team, but I wish the Kangaskhan knew low kick instead of drain punch or something like that," how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that? You have to create the team yourself.
And also kind of draw this parallel on the TCG side. We talked the last session with Juniki. I do a lot of league stuff too, and there's been a girl that's relatively new to competitive play here in just the last couple months, but she's been a Pokemon fan, collecting trading cards and Pokemon Go and other things. But just by her showing up to a league and talking to some other players, doing some internet searches and finding deck lists, she's able to put together 3/4 of a deck, proxy the rest of it, and then play some competitive level TCG matches at a local league, right? Like Alex was just pointing out, is you really can't just do that with a video game. You can't just pick up the DS, flip it open, and say, "Hey, I'm going to try this out and see what happens," right? And I can't tweak them. Like she can just take another card, or I really like this deck. I'm gonna actually purchase all the cards or trade for these cards and put them all together. Now I've got a legit deck that I can actually take to any organized play format tournament and play and actually play and play well. And I've practiced with it and I've played with it, and then now I can go on. I've shared in other conversations, I think kind of the longer term cost for a video game versus trading card game is lower, I think, in the overall, right? Once you have a system, you buy a game and you can spend the entire season with just one game, right? You don't have to buy cards and cards and cards and trade every new set. But that barrier to entry piece where there is a huge upfront cost when, if you're not a video game player with a 3DS, just to enter your first tournament, you're down $200+ plus the game, plus the time to play the game, to beat the game, to allow you to get into the advanced features, to actually do the competitive battling and trading, and then the breeding aspects. Those are all components that kind of add to that upfront cost. Again, as you go down the road, it might be a little bit cheaper, but that upfront cost could be very detrimental to somebody saying, "Well, I go spend $14. I got a theme deck, and I can sit down and play right now."
Right. Plus, the theme deck comes with the instructions.
And I was just about to say that.
There's nothing.
Let's talk about how do you play.
There's nothing for VG that comes with instructions about competitive side. Like, yes, you can buy that huge book that has like the walk through the game and it has like the type charts and all the moves that someone learns, but it doesn't explain to you why one EV spread is superior to another one on your Cresselia, or why you're going to want why you're going to want to run Modest over, I don't know, Jolly or something like that.
It doesn't even tell you what EVs and IVs are.
No, you'll never see that on any official site ever about EVs and IVs. They are basically taboo to be discussed. And like Mike was saying, you could basically pick up a theme deck and play. Well, everything you need to know about that card is written right on the card. There's actually a common phrase, read the effing card. It's like, all judges know this, and it's actually a common judge technique. If you don't know what the card does, if you've never seen the card before, read it through from a judge standpoint, from a player standpoint. You can't do that with a Pokemon. Like, you go to a tournament and you see your opponent's 6, and it's like, all right, well, is that a mixed Salamence? Is it holding a Megastone? Is it, I don't know. Is it, is that a Choice Scarf Garchomp? What, like,
Is it Helping Hand Arcanine?
Exactly.
Or is it really
you can't inherently inherently sit down and look at a Pokemon and see it for face value, because there's those hidden values that you have to learn. On top of everything that Alex mentioned earlier, there's all of these hidden numbers that you have to learn and memorize, and calcs and things like that. So the barrier for entry is humongous on a knowledge standpoint.
Yeah.
Along the same point that Mike was making about like the proxy cards or whatever I think they're called for TCG, the fake ones.
Yep.
You know, you can. It's a lot easier to just obtain those than like you get Pokemon in game, like Mike had said. But the thing is with like TCG cards, you're buying them, and then when you buy them, the sole purpose is to basically use them to play other people. You know, there's no like in game for TCG. So like when you're buying them, you're gonna be trying to play.
All right.
What do you mean?
Yeah, there is there's a lot of collectors out there, and so when you're buying those cards, you could be doing a various number of things. Yes, it's much more limited. You're either a collector or you're a competitive player. You're not just buying cards to have cards. So you're either buying them to collect or to play with, maybe both, depending on how crazy you are and if you want to damage your full art Tapu Lele, But there is a gray area in there, I will say. I'm sorry, continue.
The comparison I wanted to make was just that, when your Mike was talking about buying a system and buying a game, the thing is, I feel like, sure, people are into collecting. I feel like you can get a lot more out of what you have with your game when your system. A 3DS is able to play a lot more games, and then in Pokemon, it's not just this competitive facet. Like I can play through the end game. I can grind up Pokemon to level 100 if that's what I'm into. I can do all kinds of different things with it, and I feel like there are a lot more possibilities with it. So while it is tough to, if you don't have a 3DS and you don't have the game at all, to put that money down to just to go to VGC events, there are people like that who exist. Like I think one of the recent players who's been doing well goes by the name of Ketchup Plant. I actually met him while I was in London, and he was somebody that played solely on Showdown, and I actually was amazed by that, because I was like, how did you even get into Pokemon? Like, what brought you to just want to play Pokemon without owning a DS or the games or something like that? And so I talked to him a bit about it, and it's really interesting that, some of those people do exist. So like, it's going to be a bit of cash to put down to start, but I feel like you're going to get more out of it at the very least.
Are there any points that we didn't touch on? Oh, there is.
Well, there are, but there's
a lot of
throughout
points.
The other topics as well, and so
there's gonna be a lot of overlap.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So I kind of made a little quick note for myself. Some of the overlapping areas, and I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle some words out there, and we can kind of take the discussion whichever direction we want to go. But it seems like the things that we start talking about, besides the toxicity in some regards, it seems like there is some discussion and some common threads with regards to formats. How often the format changes, when do they change, beginning, end season, post Worlds, before the New Year's, etc. The cash flow issue with regards to the cost of tournaments on the rise versus the return on your entertainment investment. Right. And then another big part, in addition to the things we talked about, sort of barrier to entry and skill and training, advertising of events. And that can kind of also roll in not just the advertising, but the quantity of events that are in a local play area. If you're fortunate enough to live in the Midwest, there are a ton of them. Other places, not so much. So those are kind of three topics that if we go through this Google Doc, you'll see a lot of commonality between Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. Those are kind of the three major ones, at least I pulled out for myself, that kind of underline the overall thing. And I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about at least those three, and then sprinkle in some of the other things as well.
Something that I saw mentioned in chat, and I did want to bring up from one of the earlier points, and it's maybe slightly off topic, but it's just that in game, you play singles.
Yeah.
And so when you're playing through the game, and then maybe you get to the end, you beat the champion, you're like, wow, I love my team. Like, it'd be fun to battle against other people with it. Like, these 6 Pokemon are so fun. Like,
6
I know
Magikarp.
Exactly. Like, I beat the game with 6 Magikarp. Time to go show everyone my stuff. But, when they want to face somebody else, what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to play singles. They're going to
Yeah.
want to play one-on-one like the in-game.
Right.
And the in-game doesn't do a very good job of promoting doubles. Like a lot of in Sun and Moon, I'm like part way through Ultra Sun and Moon right now, struggling just because it's too similar. But um, like
Same.
I enjoyed Sun, and the thing is, like they don't have enough doubles. Like they have a couple of like sometimes you run into the twins or like maybe there's a
Right.
couple or
Right.
something, and you do like maybe 10 double battles throughout like the whole game. And then there are double battles like, oh, you're going to battle with How. But guess what? It's really just a single battle because you're going to choose your move. The computer's going to choose a move for How. And then you target the one that's super effective since the game tells you that and tells you now. So you just hit your super effective move and bam, like you're just basically playing singles. And so when people want to play competitively, that's why so many people jump to Smogon is because, you know, I want to play singles. I want to play like it was like in the in-game, but competitively with my favorite Pokemon. And sure, maybe they start to branch more like, oh man, I keep losing to this Rotom Wash Heatran team, something like that. And so they're going to use more standard Pokemon, but they're still going to want to play singles. They're going to want to play singles just because they want to emulate what they did in the in-game.
No, that's definitely a good point, and I think one that gets brought up repeatedly. You know, there's also nothing that introduces you to competitive play in the game. You know, at one point you could battle the world champions in the game. I think that was what X and Y.
I think that was, yeah, Black and White 2.
Well, yeah,
Where you could
right,
battle like
right,
against
right,
Ray and Wolf in game and stuff like that. That was so cool.
right. When that came out, my son, we had just started playing like 2 years prior, I believe. And he was all like, "Oh my God, I can battle Aaron Zhang or Brendan Zhang in game. I can battle Brendan Zhang in game. I play
Mm-hmm.
him at local tournaments, but I can also play him in my game. This is so cool." You know, and knowing the names that were in your game and being able to play against them basically whenever you wanted was kind of a huge draw. And I think that we saw an uptick in attendance at that point. You know, maybe other factors involved there, but the fact that, you know, you could access this world champion section of the game was a huge thing, you know. And you can see these kinds of strategies. Yeah, maybe they were, you know, an in-game AI that's not as
Yeah.
strong as we have now, but they were still that player's team, you know. So
Something related to that is that I think that the in-game should have some kind of promotion for VGC or competitive tournaments in general. Like that was a huge promotion of it. You know, you play against, oh, I'm playing against world champion Ray Rizzo. Who is that guy? I'm going to Google it and see like why is this Ray Rizzo guy in the game and
right.
something like that. And then you figure it out. You'd be like, wow, this guy won the world championship. He was attending a live tournament where you can play Pokemon with people face to face. That's so cool. But now, like I remember in ORAS, the only indication they have is like on the breeding island, the one where you go around the square. There was one guy who was like, he mentioned the world championships. Then there's that, and then in Sun and Moon, I can't even remember. There's like something in it that I think mentions VGC, but not enough. You know, it's
Right.
nice that we have the championship ladder now. That like kind of indicates like, oh, like this is the format that we use for live tournaments, and so that's at least a bit better of a promotion. But I still think that like somewhere along the lines they should try to promote it, like if they wanted the game to actually grow.
So let's kind of roll that into the advertising and promotion deal, right?
Right.
So
That was definitely a huge topic that came up.
yeah, so I don't know. As I was reading through the comments, I saw some of them, and some of them I didn't understand where they were coming from, and some of them I kind of get, right? The ones I got were, um, you know, if you want to grow your player base and the people that are coming to these tournaments, advertising in the same places like Facebook or Twitter, where the competitive players that are actually coming anyways are already at,
Mm-hmm.
you're not kind of expanding the advertising base, right? And I get that one to an extent. Although there are probably still a bunch of players that are out there that are on Facebook and Twitter that are still not coming to the tournaments, and we got to figure out the other reasons. But the one I didn't quite get was there were, and I know Alex, you talked about the event finder being kind of hokey.
Yeah.
Yeah, the event finder's awful.
It is kind of flaky, but at the same time, there was somebody on I think one of the Twitter replies that commented that like, I'm on Twitter and I do this and that, and I have to search for hours to find out
It was
where tournaments
Aaron
are.
Trailer. Aaron
Oh,
Trailer.
okay. I'm
Yep.
like, I don't know. It just seems kind of weird because I'm a 43-year-old man and I technology confuses me, right? Magic launch, magic box, and it seems like I'm inundated with links for regionals and mid seasons and
Well,
things like
that's
that.
because we're friends with all of the organizers and the judges, and so they're
Mhm.
basically advertising to other organizers and judges. They don't know where to put these links or anything. And I think when
Well,
Nugget
now I
Bridge
get it then.
still existed, we had started a huge push into advertising on the one section of the forums that was about offline tournaments. But now with Nugget Bridge kind of gone off into the ether, there's really no place that the organizers know of that they can kind of go and put their own links for events. And so one of the things that somebody actually said, how can established video game players help, um, is advertising your locals, your local events on your
Mhm.
Twitch, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, on your YouTube. Like if I get it that you're a personality and you're garnering money from these things, and you don't want it to seem like you're sponsoring those people or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that if you want to have higher than 100 people at your regional, you kind of have to get the word out. And if you
Mhm.
have 200, or not 200, like if you have like 20,000 subscribers on YouTube or Twitter or Twitch or whatever it is, like it wouldn't hurt for you to say, hey, there's a mid-season going on this weekend, or hey, there's a
Mhm.
mid-season in my area next weekend, and you can put a little caveat blurb like, I'm not getting paid for this, or whatever it is that you want,
Mhm.
whatever you want to do. And to kind of jump off of that, my son Ian, we were in the car going to pick up some stuff that he needs for lunch every day, and he was watching a YouTube video, which is basically all he does, and he was just like, Mom, I keep seeing all these advertisements for the new Hearthstone release. And I was just like, let me ask you a question. Speaking of the new Hearthstone release, we just had a new video game come out. Were any of the advertisements in the last couple of months on your YouTube videos for the new video game, for the new Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon? He was like, no. And I was like, well, what about the new set that we just had a pre-release for a couple of weeks ago, or a couple, whatever, month ago, or whatever? No.
Mhm.
This is like a huge audience that Hearthstone is obviously taking advantage of,
Yeah.
that Pokemon is completely missing out on. Like, they're not even advertising on the biggest video platform where everyone's watching the let's plays and the playthroughs and all of that
So,
other stuff.
so here's the thing, and I have a question in my chat that I'd love to kind of get your opinion on. But before I circle back around to that, what are some of the areas that organizers and people like me could actually advertise in that is beyond the traditional Facebook groups that are for players that are already interested in coming to events? You mentioned YouTube, but you know my YouTube channel, like all three people would see it, um, those kinds of things. There has to be a broader a way to get a broader audience, for people that might be interested in it, in playing those kinds of things. And so
Something
where do
that
we do that?
Rebecca and I did last year. Rebecca Cartwright, who
Hmm?
you guys I know are familiar with, but for the people that she's a Chicago TO who I'm friends with, and so she last year she was making these flyers to bring to the Sun Ultra, the Sun and Moon, because I was like gonna say Ultra Sun and Moon release, to hand out and be like, all right, I'm having a tournament on December or something like that, right after the format flips, and come and hang out. And so when I saw that, I was like, all right, this is an opportunity for me to kind of help out. So I brought the flyers to my college, and I had to go through a bunch of hoops, but I ended up like kind of teaming up with the esports team, and I got permission to put the flyers around, and so I did. I put flyers all around campus because these are like the non-conventional ways where you're going to find those people who aren't checking Twitter, or like they don't have the connections. Like they're not following the people who are going to be advertising Pokemon tournaments, so they're missing that. But I was really like I was also trying to capitalize on the fact that like Sun and Moon seemed to have like a lot of promise. We were expecting it to bring a lot of people into the game just because it was a new generation. A lot of people were getting back into it from Go and stuff like that, and so we were trying to look for alternative ways to help grow the local scene, and that was one of them.
Did
It's
it?
just
What was your kind of response to the flyers that we went out for the release?
so I both put them around campus, and honestly, did not get a great response from what I'm assuming. Because like at that tournament, I don't think anybody that I had talked to was from my school, and so that honestly didn't really lead to much at all. And then I brought them to the GameStop midnight release, and I worked with the store owners, and they had them kind of like sitting at the checkout counter so that people could see them as they came up. And I think we've like might have seen like a couple of people, but really just only a small increase. So like like the flyers, it like I'm not gonna try to say it was a great method. It's just we're looking for something. We were trying to find alternative ways to bring people in.
I think on a regional scale, getting Pokemon, or even if Pokemon could, and this is something that I've been saying for a while now, a graphics packet that they could provide to every organizer, and the organizer, they go in to sanction their event, and it's like, oh, all right, I'm going to take 5 banners and 5 overlays and this, and they basically buy all of these graphics from organized player or whatever to work at their event. And part of that could be a large poster like 11 by 14 or 18 by 20 or whatever, 16 by 20 poster that they could then have created by, say like the printing company that Pokemon uses, and they basically just provide their information and they get these things printed, and now you take it to your local GameStop and say, or your local card shop, and you say, hey, I'm having a regional tournament, would you hang this poster up?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine any game shop turning that kind of thing down. Right. Especially if you offer to work with them on some kind of level.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of circle back to the question that was in my chat over here. The question was posed, do you feel the decline of Nugget Bridge went hand in hand with the decline of VGC? Do you think it was kind of, they kind of fed on each other, with the decline of VGC to Nugget Bridge, or Nugget Bridge causing, etc.?
I was a big fan of Nugget Bridge, and I really do appreciate the work that they did back in those days. I honestly don't know if they're correlated or not. Like we saw that Nugget Bridge was kind of declining. They were posting less articles, stuff like that. But people really are just kind of moving away from forums. That's what Nugget Bridge was big for back in the day, was forums. And now forums are kind of dying. A lot of people we see now are people go to social media. We have social media now where that's where they're going to be chatting, or like chat rooms. Something like Showdown has a chat room. So
Discord servers and
Discord,
like
absolutely. And so stuff where you can do it either live or social media, where you can do I don't know, like more rapid fire posting. You can like follow people. You don't have to find a forum with the subject that you're interested in talking about. Not to rag on forums, but it's just that that's kind of why I think I think that's why people are moving away from forums, is that social media stuff like Skype, Discord, all kinds of chat rooms are just kind of pulling people away from that. But I don't think that the Nugget Bridge decline was exactly correlated with like anything related to VGC.
That's good insight.
So the forum thing, the one downside that I will say, the caveat to the fact that we live on social media, we live on TCG seems to me more on Facebook, we're more on Twitter. The problem with that is that you can't follow a discussion linearly, or if you don't follow everyone involved in the discussion, you won't see all of the sides of the discussion that's going on. And so the positive or the upside to, say, a forum that's dedicated to something, or like a Reddit, like a subreddit for video game, like the Pokemon VGC or the Stunfisk sections, is that you can, yes, it's still social media, but you can still follow along with the topic linearly, and you don't necessarily have to follow these people or be friends with them to be able to understand what's going on.
So it seems too. So Caitlin's on my chat, and she brought up another good point too. Is they had at her college, they had a 20 to 40 regular attendees at a Pokemon club. Then they started a TCG VGC league and advertised to them mainly, right? I mean, they already had 20 or 40 Pokemon type fans, but nobody showed up. It's kind of weird where you can have this fan base of Pokemon people, but trying to get them to convert from the ultra casual where I just collect, play, whatever, into kind of a pseudo competitive come to play in a tournament type of thing it just seems really I don't know, like Pokemon Go came out and there's still people, we go on a raid in town and we run across people that are huge fans. They're like level 40, 42 or whatever it is in Pokemon Go, but get them to come to a league event. No, that's never going to happen.
It's
come to a
almost
tournament.
like the casual Pokemon fans are like the wrong audience. You'd almost have more success if you were to show up to a Smash tournament. I remember back in the day, a player, Evan Delgianis, goes by like Nave. He doesn't really play VGC anymore, but he was a Smash guy, and he would like have friends come by sometimes who were friends from his Smash league, from people or his Smash Weekly, stuff like that. And they'd be like, "What are you going to? You're going to a Pokemon tournament?" Like, I play Pokemon, and then they have that competitive drive. They're people who are gonna be interested in attending tournaments and seeing, oh, am I any good at this? Like maybe this is something I could be successful at, because they're interested in competition. Whereas people at these Pokemon fan clubs, yes, you might have a chance of pulling somebody from there who's looking for competition because like also related to Pokemon. But I think you're going to have more success at like fighting game competition, stuff like that, where people have that interest to compete, and so it's going to draw them to other forms of competition.
Right. Right. That's absolutely a good point.
So one of the things we keep talking about Nugget Bridge and forums and things of that nature. One of the things that, again, I pointed out into the chat and kind of got me thinking as well, article sites like Six Prizes, Hey Trainer, or what's the ones that are coming around for the TCG side where they've got all kinds of maybe it's not Six
There's
Prizes.
actually one. No, Six Prizes. Six Prizes is a huge one. The meta deck, I think.
Someone's PC. That's a good one.
Yeah, there's one in Europe. I think it may be meta deck, and I'm gonna actually look up.
But it seems like we come off of a regional or another large event, and those sites, whether it's a paywall or a free article, there are people actually subscribing to these sites for deck analysis and metagame analysis and things of that nature, and it just doesn't seem like there is kind of a comparable underlying driving scene, and it almost seems like there's a huge surge of VGC interest right before or right after an event, with teams and team lists and EV spreads, but it's all kind of this shared in this Twitterverse, and you have to know people and ask people for things, as opposed to, my news feed on Facebook is, a Six Prize. Hey, I just wrote an article about this deck that won the regionals, and they do a deck breakdown about how the cards interact and how the deck is supposed to be run. But I don't see anything from the VGC community that says, hey, this is Billy Bob Joe's, team that he ran at this midseason, or the regional winner, and let's break down and analyze this team and how the team functions and those kinds of things.
So on the
do you think that might help?
On the TCG side, let me feel this one for a second. On the TCG side, the Six Prizes website has been run for a very long time. And it's been run by the same gentleman. I can't remember his name for the life of me because I'm awful with names. But it's been run by the same guy, and he switched over to the basic, the paywall. I want to say many years ago. I want to say at least 4 years ago, because I remember when we first got into the competitive TCG scene. We subscribed to the Six Prizes because all of the underground articles were the best articles, and they were all written by the top players. Kenny Wisdom was probably one of the most popular writers for them at that point, and the only way to read all of Kenny's articles was to subscribe. And I remember how controversial it was at the time to have this huge paywall. But the fact that he kept going with it, didn't bow to the pressure, and continued to provide quality content that he paid his writers for. Obviously, yes, he had the subscriptions, he had advertisements, yada, yada. But you couldn't fault the guy. He wasn't giving you shoddy information. He was giving you quality articles. Now, yes, at one point, there was a huge scandal because players, I think it was the year that we first started playing, players were like, writing articles, oh, this is going to be the big decks at nationals, and then all of those writers or all of those content creators ended up playing like decks that weren't what they said were going to be big and kind of counter teamed those, and it was like a huge controversy that has since, not happened anymore. Obviously those people have, kind of saw the error of their ways after some huge community pressure, but that's something that's been in existence for a long time. And so the kind of comparable site that we had was Nugget Bridge, and all of the people that ran Nugget Bridge obviously have their lives and their personal, goals and things like that, and they have jobs and they've all graduated from college and didn't really make Nugget Bridge kind of the same thing that Six Prizes was created into. And so now we don't have that avenue for the talented writers in the community. And so those people kind of don't see a benefit to writing if they're not going to get paid for it. And so either they're a content creator for YouTube and they're making videos that they're monetizing, or they're just not sharing their things because, let's face it, spreads are a huge deal and people don't want to share them.
I think that we could definitely benefit from seeing more people write in Pokemon. I personally I think it's almost like not like a duty, but I do it just because I enjoy it. I've written a report about my regional win. I wrote a report about top cutting nationals back in the day, and I write when I feel that one, the players are going to want to see it. So I do have limits to how successful I would have to be if I wanted to write it. So I might not write about a team that won a midseason, but I would maybe write about a team that did well at a regional. But the thing is, I don't feel like I need to be paid for it or anything like that. I just want to put it out there, mostly just because I want to see, I want to show off this thing that makes Pokemon great. I got to put creativity into building my team, and I kind of want to almost flaunt it, just be this is what I did, and this is cool, this is fun, read about it, I'll talk to you about my games, this is what it was like for me. And so I think that maybe we could have maybe seen more success from Nugget Bridge if they went down that paywall route and then paid their writers. We did see a Japanese site do that.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name
Patrick
of it.
actually just mentioned it. It's Amalgame.
Yeah, it might be pronounced amalgamy or something like that, but that is the one I'm referring to.
that would be right.
I don't know if it's. Maybe you're right. It's amalgame, but amalgamy is what I thought it was. Anyway,
that one looks right too. That one looks right too. I will go with whatever because it's coming from Japan, and who knows how the hell they pronounce it. But anyway,
pronunciation is its own topic in Pokemon, with Pokemon like Conkeldurr or Conkeldurr.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Pokemon, it probably is some really weird pronunciation.
Yeah. What I was trying to say though is, we don't see a complete lack of it. The writing aspect of it, writing articles, that is kind of lacking right now. We don't see enough people writing about their successful teams and just being willing to release those. I'll be honest though, sometimes it can be for selfish purposes. I wrote an article about my win in Fort Wayne, and I was ready to release it. I wrote it pretty much a week after, and I finished it, and it's still not out for anybody who's listening right now. The reason that was, after my Fort Wayne win, I was planning on going to London, essentially. And I was maybe considering bringing this exact same team. And while I was okay with people knowing the team, since pretty much everything's posted on Pokemon.com, right, and the EV spreads didn't really matter, in the writing, I wrote about how the team plays, about what it's good against and what it's bad against. And so, if players plan on continuing to use these same teams, or even the same EV spreads, movesets, stuff like that, it will hurt them slightly, but I don't know. We just have to be able to I think that we do need to see more writing about it, and I probably I was feeling guilty about it this entire time that I hadn't released it. I kept talking to Gina about it. I was like, I really should release it, and she's like, but you're going to London, and I'm like, but I want to show the people my team. It's it was really a controversy.
Yeah.
At least it's not completely absent. We see a lot of big name players who have YouTube channels like Wolf or Aaron. If they have a successful run, they'll post it on their channel,
Right.
But in terms of writing, we definitely need to see more written articles because not everyone's going to be able to watch a video, like a 28-minute video explaining how the team goes, but maybe they can read it while they're on like their commute or something like that or whatever. And so I
Right.
think
And
we could probably use more written articles, but at least we have the video ones.
Right. And I think, saying that we need more written articles is great, and we definitely do. But I want to, impress upon the community that not all articles are created equal. And so I think that it comes down to the players that are having success. I don't want to say the popular players or the prominent players or the snowball players. I just want to say the players that are experiencing more success with a team. Say you've gone on a run of mid-seasons and you've gotten top 8 at like 5 mid-seasons. Please, by all means, if you've used the same team at those 5 mid-seasons, write an article about it. Tell us how it works. Tell us why. But not everyone is going to be able to kind of explain their team the way that other people can do it. And so it kind of it comes to a point where you have to kind of be collaborative about it. Maybe pair up with a person that has really strong writing skills, but maybe isn't that great of a team builder, or they haven't had so much success lately. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that was part of Nugget Bridge's strength, was that their writing, the people that were editing the articles were top notch, and they always made sure that the articles that were released were of a high quality. And the same thing with Six Prizes. The people that are writing may or may not be good writers, but they're fantastic, deck builders or players, and the editing process makes it so that their articles are worth the money that you pay for.
And we need to convince Justin Grubau to write an article.
Yeah, for real. I was as soon as she mentioned that, Justin was one of the first people I thought of. He needs to write about his 4 MSS team.
Absolutely, and that maybe that's something we talk about, and maybe we get him on the show too and talk about his successful run. But those are the kind of things I think that kind of help grow from a player's perspective. Things that players can do to help us kind of grow and move that forward. As we run a little bit,
Yeah, we just hit the 10 o'clock mark. So.
Yeah, but if you're comfortable, Alex, to keep going, there's like 2 more things I kind of really want to touch.
I don't really mind.
Okay.
Fantastic.
It's an hour earlier for me, so.
Yeah. Two things that were on my list here is the cost aspect, right? And I'm not talking about the barrier to entry type costs. I'm talking about actual tournament costs, and what impact that has. Addition with like cost/pricing, and then the other part was the formats that we have for the VGC, and what impact format, how often we change format, and how we change format impacts or doesn't impact, in your opinion, the decline or the ebb and flow of our attendance.
Back in 2014, when I started, I know we were talking about this earlier, but like 2014 Nationals was my first event, and I showed up and there was no entry fee. I just got to play. And also on top of that, because this is going to entice those casual players more, those people who are just showing up and playing because like they love the game, because they don't really care about CP, they don't care about how they finish, they just want to play as much Pokemon as they want, as they can get in that weekend. When I went to 2014 Nationals, I didn't pay anything to get into the tournament, and I went 5-4, and then afterwards, the second day, I came back and I played in as many side event tournaments as I could. They had these 8-man pods that were also free to enter. They were offering prizes. I mean, that's definitely going to entice people to keep playing them. Like, they gave you like a pack if you won or something like that, a pack of cards. But just having these like tournaments set up so that you can play against everybody else there who's interested in just playing pickup games, having those run, but at no cost, is really a big deal. I think especially like side events, like as a much more serious competitive player now, I have no interest in playing side events. I'm not going to, because I put all my effort into coming for the main event. If I'm out, I'm pretty much exhausted and done playing the game. But for like those casual people, if you want to keep them coming, we need to keep side events big. We need to keep them relevant. But I think keeping those free would actually make a bit of a big deal. I understand the reasoning behind having an entry fee. That's like we need to have the entry fee for the main event just to pay for like the venue, also because people want prize money. There are things about the entry fee that I dislike, though, like all the stuff that comes with it, the free swag,
Free.
the swag that's like forced on you, like it's really bad. And uh, while I'm still going, I just wanted to mention spectator passes also really bother me. Um, you're getting to come to this really cool event, because I was actually talking to Rebecca about this over the weekend, and she and I were kind of in a disagreement about it, but like because I think that spectator fees shouldn't exist at all. But she brought up some good points in that, what are you getting when you go to an event? You're getting to hang out with all these people. It's almost like going to a convention for people who go to like video game conventions or Comic-Con or whatever.
Yep.
People who do that kind of stuff, you have to pay to get into those things. And I think that, it's maybe not totally unreasonable to expect people to pay to get into these. But what really bothers me is like the free stuff that's not free. I keep saying free, but it's just, this free stuff that is forced onto you. I really wish it was just removed and the price was lowered or whatever, because like I really don't need that free merchandise that is being like given to me. It's almost like they're just giving me stuff to advertise them. Like they'll give me a hat that might have their company logo on it, or like a deck box, and a deck box is super relevant to me as a VGC player. Stuff like that I really do not want or need, and that's kind of what bothers me most about entry fees, is just this stuff that really isn't necessary.
We talked about this offline, and I think that hopefully going forward, I know Hartford didn't have any of that added stuff, and people were kind of, I think, more on the TCG side, were kind of annoyed that there was no option to get those things unless you went to like this huge, more expensive package, right? I think, organizers, to kind of, entice players, this may be not that big of a deal, but your basic entry should be basic entry. That's it. If you want to have free stuff that's added on there, great, but it should be basic entry. And then if I want to do an option for adding on things to my cart, like a mat or a hat, or your stage 1 prize extra thing that includes like static seating and whatever, that should be an option to add on. And Mike and I actually talked about this last week. And I think it really more would go to the people that are running the online reg system. But it basically, like, I want to play in the tournament. I'm going to pay you to play in your tournament. And then I have all of these options, all of these features that I can add on. Not that I get basic stage 1 and stage 2 with no flexibility. That's great and all, but like if I just want to play, I don't want your mat, I don't want your hat, I don't want, here or there or whatever. I just want basic, and that really should be an option that regional organizers should consider. I definitely like the idea of keeping the pickup games free, because like you said, a lot of times you're coming to, especially the larger nationals and worlds, you're not going to do well. You're basically coming to hang out with the community and kind of experience the convention aspect of it. And to have to then pay for like a 8-man pod that you're not going to get anything out of, that kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Those kind of side events should be free to play, especially for the newer players. The paid ones should be the larger ones, the ones where we do, I don't know, the different color cups or whatever, the multi cups or all the other ones that we've planned. But also, and I noticed this with Hartford, you could have a really great side event set up, like with all these kind of enticing formats and things like that, like different kinds of OUs and stuff like that. But if you're not advertising with enough time for the players to get these teams together, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot there, So on top of having all of this stuff to entice the players, it's getting that information out as soon as possible and not waiting until a week or 2 weeks before the event to kind of say, hey, look at all these side events and look at all these great prizes. Well, you know what? Nobody's showing up because registration's closed, or there's no space, or the flights are too expensive,
Yeah, so with the cost, we had a whole episode, Jen, that we talked about tournament costs and the need to charge for players to play in order to cover our own expenses, the venue costs, judge compensation, and then of course prizing, right? And when you start looking at prizing, and Alex and I kind of talked briefly about this before we went live, it's back when we were playing and it was free, there was no big prize money stuff, right? And there was a big clamor in the VGC community. We want to be like in esports. We want to be esports. We need prize money. You need to entice me to come play these tournaments by giving us prize money. And then once we started instituting prize money, the registration started going up, and now we're starting to hear it's costing me too much, and we need to bring down the prices. But it seems like there's a still desire to keep the larger prize monies and things of that nature. And again, it's that fine balancing act between charging enough in order to cover expenses and to make it worth an organizer's time, and making it reasonable for both the competitive players and the casuals, right, to come. And I totally agree. I mean, if you look at the pricing chart for money, if you want, at like like Memphis with 121 Masters, the top 4 players are getting money, starting at $250 for third and fourth. Second place gets $500 and $1,000 for first place. But outside of those 4 players, out of the 121, everybody else is walking away with free stuff, right? They're getting nothing else for their thing besides the entertainment value and the opportunity to get championship points. I mean, those have value too. I don't want to downplay that because that's what it is. But if I'm like you said, I'm a true casual player. I've been playing for a couple months because Ultra Sun and Moon have come out. Well, not for Memphis, but for another event. I've been playing Sun and Moon for the last year, and I'm having a great time. And I want to go battle other trainers. Throwing down $40-$50, whatever it is, to come play a couple rounds, knowing full well that people like Alex here are going to kick my butt. I'm realistically, the fact that there's prize money doesn't really factor into a person of my caliber or even slightly better, because granted I'm at the very bottom of the barrel, but it doesn't really factor into my decision of whether that's worth it. At that point I'm looking at, okay, $40 for 1 day worth of playing with a bunch of people and taking the experience. In my opinion, that's probably at the top end of what I'm willing to pay for a whole day's worth of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
If we go more than that, I'm going to start hesitating. I'm like, okay. But if it's less, then I wouldn't hesitate, right? I would not hesitate to go ahead and say, sure, well, let's go, right? So it kind of all plays on each other. But the more we talk about these, and it kind of plays into one of the questions in my chat, is I get that, but is this really a big impact on our actual attendance numbers? I mean, when you look at the TCG numbers, they're paying the same registration fees, right?
Yeah.
The pricing structure is not that much different with regards to the prize payout. I'm talking about cash, right? Okay, because if you look at the prize payout, and Jen's giving me that, no, you're wrong, Mike, but the dollar amounts are definitely different. But as far as how deep the money goes, that's not that much different, is it? I mean, it's not like 4 players from the VGC are getting it, and well, let me put it that way: 9 through 16 would get money if we had more than 200 players, right? But you got to get the numbers to get the more money to more people. Right. So it's kind of a chicken egg kind of thing. But but there have got to be other factors that can help drive our attendance numbers up. And that's how do we get to that?
Well, I think one of the things that regionals organizers have to consider is, and I think this is a TPCI thing as well, VGC community, like you said, wants to be esports, and Alex mentioned we really should be looking at the fighting game community, the Smash community. Well, why aren't the regionals organizers talking to guys like Bear or Jabali when it comes to planning these events? I mean, Jabali was the TO for Pokken at World Championships. He was there for the entire weekend. Like the organizers, that was a resource that TPCI could have put at the organizers' fingers and kind of said like, hey, this guy runs CEO and like a myriad of other very successful fighting game tournaments, that are kind of conventions in their own right. And I don't think that was something that was offered to the TOs. And so like these are the connections that need to be made, getting these people in touch with your regionals organizers, or having the regionals organizers, or even like the TPCI members. Like, I know Chris Brown is from the fighting industry. Why aren't we bringing what they do over there and implementing it at our events at our regional level and then higher? What are they doing that the community at large, like again, their casual community, why are they willing to pay the event fees to go in, and then on top of that the tournament fee, the entry fee to play? Because fighting games, if you know anything about them, they charge a venue fee and then a tournament fee, so you're paying twice to play in the event. And sometimes you could be playing in multiple tournaments in a weekend, and so you're paying a fee for each tournament. And I don't, obviously I'm not, big in the fighting game community. I follow along, but I don't follow too many of their players. But it seems to me that their casual player base attends those events with no, little to no issue on that kind of stuff. And why aren't we looking at that and saying, hey, this is really successful? Why don't I go and visit CEO this weekend, and see how they're running things? Or why am I not going to PAX or whatever? I know PAX is not like a video game tournament, but why am I not going to these conventions and saying, what here can I apply to my regional to entice more casuals to be willing to come out and lose to the top players and then have a great time the rest of the weekend? There's got to be something there that draws these people to go to PAX, to go to CEO, to go to all these other things.
I think kind of moving away from the fighting games, because if we do talk about fighting games, I'll probably have nothing great to say about Pokemon. Whenever I make those comparisons, I always just bag on Pokemon. Like the smaller skill gap, but stuff like that. Anyway, like I think if we look at tournament attendance, what are the there's two sections where we kind of see tournament attendance dwindle, and that's like the fall and then maybe the tail end of the spring, like towards like summer right before nationals. Those are the tournaments that we typically see regionals get like poorer attendance. Like I remember like in 2016, like Kansas got like 50 something people or something. I remember it being ridiculously small. And with the fall tournaments, we're seeing Memphis looking really small. And it's kind of tied to the other thing that Mike wanted to talk about, which is the format. The format, not switching, or honestly, in the spring case, it's not really a case of the format, but it's more the CP structure. It's that, towards the end of the spring, like you're getting to the last couple of tournaments, the last couple of chances to get the World's invite. There's only going to be a handful of people who are within range. And so those people that are completely gone out of it, they're not going to bother. They're going to be like, well, I can't make Worlds unless I win the whole thing. I'm not going to go. I'm not even, or like some people aren't even that close. They can't even get a Worlds invite no matter how well they do. And so they're not going to bother. And then the people, like basically the whole fall, we're playing this format that is essentially dead. Like we built it all year until we got to Worlds, the biggest tournament of the year, where everybody needs to show their best stuff. If you have anything left in this format that is cool, new, or something that's going to break the game, you want to show it there. You want to be the world champion, so you're going to show it all. And so if you save anything after that point, like people just don't really care anymore. People are just kind of like they always complain like, oh, this format's dead, and like people kind of suffer through the whole fall. And I think we're kind of stuck in like a loop. I was talking about this over the weekend. There's not much we can do about that, because unless we want to just give up playing in the fall altogether, if we want to play, we have to play the old format, because the two options that we have are either move Worlds to sometime in the fall or winter, when the new like right before the new game comes out or something, or shortly after. And that's not going to work. People aren't going to be able to travel. It's going to be a whole lot of like problems.
Yep.
And so then it's like, okay, well then the games just need to release in the summer. And that's not going to happen either. No, Game Freak doesn't care about VGC that much. They're not. I know. Sorry, that's going to get a little bit negative. Sorry, but
no,
that's right. No, that's you're right on track.
But they're not going to care about like VGC. They're not going to care like about the numbers at Worlds. They want to get the most sales. They want to push their games, right. And so they're going to release it closer to the holiday. And so we're stuck. They need to be at separate times, which means that fall gap, we're stuck playing the old format, and there's nothing we can do. We're stuck doing it. And that's why whenever I talk to Rebecca, she always compares it to TCG. They change formats every 3 months or so,
Yeah.
and that probably is a big factor in why more people keep attending the tournaments. Is it's constantly kept fresh, whereas the format is not. We'd have to see maybe like half-year formats or something like that because we can't change the system. The fall is always going to have to be played in the old format, and then for spring, I really don't know how to save spring. Other than more tournaments or something like that. But, people want to earn a Worlds invite. And so if they see that they can't anymore, it's going to hurt attendance.
I think this is something we were talking about, and I was really hoping was going to happen this season because, we had that battle spot doubles setup going on. I'm trying to remember when that came out on the battle spot, the new doubles format with the megas and stuff like that. I was hoping that we were going to hit September 1, or obviously they would announce it earlier, but
Yeah.
we would hit September 1 and have a kind of 17.5 format where they would allow megas. And so we would go from September to December. It would be still Sun and Moon, still the limited format decks or whatever, but we would allow megas or whatever, mega stones and things like that. And I thought that would kind of be a really great way to kind of freshen up the format, get people ready for January, and kind of get people interested again. That I feel definitely would have helped. And I know that there are a lot of people on the other side that say, oh, well, after Worlds there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of people that want to play. They get really excited for after Worlds. But you know what? TCG has changed in September for I don't know how many years, time immemorial. So, and I understand, all right, we don't want to compare VGC to TCG because they're two different games, but instead of, saying, oh, this is not going to work, let's give it a shot. Like, as a community, we have to kind of advocate for something to change or something to help us out. So, for 3 months, if we get a new format, give it a shot. Like everybody's already excited about megas and stuff like that. We all know you're going to get a month in and everybody's going to hate it again. It's just the nature of how VGC works. I think if we had a kind of either a standard / expanded where we had a limited decks and then a kind of expanded that had, maybe megas and more of a open decks, or we had a 3-month rotation where these Pokemon are now legal, these Pokemon are now not, these Megastone items are not legal, these items are now legal, and kind of, fluctuate that, maybe not every 3 months, that may be a little bit too much, maybe every 6 months or something like that, or January to, Worlds is one format, and then, September to December is another format, or however we want to do it, or whatever. But I think trying something like that could definitely, help to kind of keep things fresh a little bit. And somebody actually did mention that, and I'm trying to remember where it came up.
On Twitter, I saw Gavin talking about it. A couple of people were talking about this, like switching formats more often and comparing it to TCG. I think Billa might have been talking about it. A lot of people were talking about it. Again, as you said, it's kind of hard because you have to follow everyone in the discussion. So, but these are just a couple of people. The thing is, having multiple formats over the course of the year, I think does sound like an all right idea, something to consider. You have to be wary of how often you push it, though, because breeding is just going to become worse and worse, and learning the format is also going to be a bit of a chore, but that's also, it's going to revive interest, so that kind of counters each other. But breeding, I don't want to have to constantly get ready new Pokemon every 3 months just because the format keeps switching. Like, it's just going to be kind of too crazy.
Right.
And when you compare it to TCG, we're saying TCG changes every 3 months. What exactly changes every 3 months? Doesn't
they
it
add
like
some cards?
They add some cards. That's not exactly what's happening in Pokemon. If we talk about changing formats, like that would be the equivalent of us just getting Stakataka and Blacephalon added to the game.
Right.
And then 3 months later, we get some new Ultra Beasts or something like that.
Right.
And so,
but they also
we don't really
do have the expanded and the standard. So they have a limited deck. So like say that where we had Kalos decks or whatever, and then they had the national decks. And I would even advocate for something like that. You know, a limited dex format is standard, and say you limited the items that you could use in there, or say maybe just Z moves or just megas, and then the expanded format that was everything, and like they basically all hell breaks loose. But I do remember what the comment that I wanted to talk about, and it was on Reddit, and it basically said that the formats come out, and it seems like TPCI doesn't even play test their own formats. And I really feel that sometimes that's the case. And, you know, I know players have had this gripe with the rules at certain points. And I think, you know, you guys are so creative out there, and there's so many different forms of, you know, like I said, the Smoggin rules and things like that. You know, it comes to a point where why aren't we coming up with it? And, you know, kind of saying to the company, hey, this seems like a really healthy format. Can you guys look at it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that something like that would ever happen, but it's better to kind of do something productive than to kind of just complain the entire time without doing
come up with
anything.
some recommendations and let's just push them forward. I mean, the only thing that's going to happen is nothing's going to change, right?
Yeah.
But at least if you push something forward as an idea or a concept, who knows? You never know
Right.
what can happen. Somebody might actually listen someday.
Right.
And
I
based
mean,
on what I'm seeing in the chat, like, you know, they're talking about how and we see it in the document a bit too. Some of the community can be intimidating, or some people just aren't interested in the VGC community because maybe it's not the most positive. Honestly, I really disagree with a lot of those things. Like, I really love the Pokemon community. It's one of the like main reasons I'm still playing, is because, you know, you get to go hang out with all these people with common interest. I do agree that there are like people who could be nicer, people who could be less egotistic, stuff like that. But like, the reason that I keep playing is for locals, honestly. Like, I love the big tournaments. I love going to show off and have big success. But like, I attend every local tournament that is hosted in my area. It's a chance to like go hang out, and that's something that I think that like comparing it to fighting games, Smash does really well. Is they have these weeklies where people
right.
show up every week. We can't really do that in Pokemon because we're all so enticed by CP that, you know, we grassroots tournaments aren't going to do so well if you hosted something weekly. But I think like having these smaller events, like, you know, Premier Challenges getting whittled down to the point that nobody even wants to attend them anymore is really
Right.
bad for the game.
Yeah.
They need to keep these
Yeah.
small level tournaments important and, you know, keep people wanting to attend them. And it really hurts me because like I've lost like not lost friends, but there are a lot of people who just don't come as often to the smaller tier events because it's not worth it to travel that far for them. And so I think we need to appreciate the smaller events. They should probably be worth more. And on the other point, with the community, I think that like top players should be less discouraged to talk to newer players, talk to the younger players. Like, if you want the community to grow, you got to work on the seniors and juniors as well. Just because, you know, they're gonna age up, they're gonna join you, and if you want to, you got to keep them interested because their numbers are already so low. You know, our numbers are looking bad. We're having 100 people, and that's bad. Look at the younger divisions; they're even smaller, and
Yep.
you know, it's even harder to get them to stay to attach because they have like so much stuff going on when you're going through that point in your life, and so getting them to stay is really important because I imagine the attach rate is even worse for the younger divisions.
Yeah. And it comes down to, and this is something that I talk about a lot, and Mike and I have talked about before, getting the parents involved. And, you know, in TCG, I'm a mom, and I can go to the store and I can buy some cards and I can learn how to play and I can sit and play with my son. And that's how we got started. You know, we started going to leagues so that he could have friends his own age and play. And it turns out we didn't find any friends his own age, but we found a really great community. But with video game, yeah, I can sit down and I can play with my son, but we're singles in the game, like we mentioned earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
learning IVs and EVs and stuff like that. I remember sitting at my first nationals and just like watching the screen and listening to Scott and Evan do commentary and having absolutely no idea what was going on and turning to Angel Miranda and being like, what the hell just happened? And he was like, oh, that was a full choice team, and that's why she lost. And I was just like, she looked awesome. And he was like, oh, yeah, you're an idiot. I mean, he didn't call me an idiot, but that was basically what it was. It's like, you know, for parents coming in and trying to understand video game, it's a huge undertaking, you know, and so if local communities want to keep these players going, or to entice new players to come in. It's kind of like, and I know you've done this, and I know a lot of other players have done this, but kind of taking the younger players under your wing and helping them out, with guidance, or talking about teams, or, giving them a team, or, helping them out. I know you're really good with it with Rebecca and her kids, and I know Tommy has been helping Mike's son, and there's a lot of other prominent players that do this for the juniors, and to some extent the seniors. I know Quentin Cologne, I believe, is part of the Smoggin group now, and things like that. And so there are these younger players that are getting mentored by the older players, but not enough. And I think that's where TCG shines and VGC fails. TCG, these kids can go to league, and they can learn to play with the players at their league, and they go every week, and mom and dad are like, hey, this is great, I'm going to go and learn how to play too. There's nothing like that for video game, and we've tried numerous times to get that going for VGC, like whether it was an intro to breeding or an intro to competitive play, but there's only so much that you can do on the video game side without a play test.
And I think that kind of brings you to kind of the last thing that I wanted to kind of cover too, is support from the Pokemon Company International and organized play for video game players. And June and Nikki commented on our last episode, doesn't exist.
Zero.
You look at league supplies. You got promo cards. You got online code cards for PTCGO.
Yep, they have like charms and stuff like that.
And BGC, nothing. Our document and all those things online are all riddled with, why don't they give us a QR code for a special Pokemon, or a QR code for a special battle team that was put together by the creators of Game Freak or something, or a special Pikachu that is the original trainers from Masuda, or those kinds of things, right? It's a piece of cardboard with a QR code that links to some online digital download content.
I mean, they post up the top 8 teams from all divisions, from regionals. Why aren't those top 8 teams accompanied by a QR code that I can scan?
They did that for
Europe. Tried to do something like that as well.
Did they?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's no longer like confidential information at this point, but they reached out to me after Collinsville, and what they did was they were going to try to put QR teams of our teams on the stream so that people could try them.
Okay.
But something ended up falling through, and so they just ended up putting the teams up there so you could look at. But I remember they actually did try to put the teams out there, like with like the player and their accomplishment, like, oh, this is the Collinsville winning player or winning team, and here you can try it, scan it right now.
Yeah.
Right. And that basically, like, that it should be that you can go and you can scan a team and you can try it in game, on BattleSpot or whatever. Like, if you want to spread the word, if you want people to start learning how to play, their YouTube channel is a huge resource right now for them, and they should be doing 5 or 10 minute segments on different techniques of competitive battling, or an intro to breeding, or an intro to the ultra wormholes, techniques to catch, using synchronize and stuff like that to get the nature, and how to use bottle caps and things like that, or how to access the global link website to be able to scan these QR codes. Like, there's so many things that they could be doing to support the community and TOs that is not.
Caitlin had a really good idea too. In conjunction, we were talking about article writing. If you ever get around to writing that article about your Fort Wayne regionals, maybe have a QR code with the article saying, "This was my team."
It's actually already written, and it's going to have a QR code.
Awesome. See, you're
But the problem was, this is back to when I was talking earlier, how I was so torn because I wanted to release it right away. It's because the intention was to have the QR code right away so that people could enjoy playing with my team. That was mostly centered around, I thought the team was really fun, and so I wanted people to try it. But that also goes along with what we're talking now. People want to try these teams that have done well, and so that was actually something that I planned on having in there, was a QR code. Now,
the thing I think fundamentally that kind of just bothers me from organizer perspective, or somebody who just loves this community and loves doing these kinds of things, everything that we've kind of talked about to help boost numbers and attendance and those kinds of things are all coming from this side of the table when it comes to the player, organizer, and the company relationships. It seems, and I'm just going to echo some of the things that we see in this document, we see online social medias, and I'm just kind of laying it out there. You know, it just seems like the Pokemon Company International does not put that support and that effort for the growth for the video game community out there. There's support for the leagues, which support all the trading card activities. Jen, you said it before, the trading card game advertises itself, right? It's kind of a self-promoting, feeding loop of buy more cards, get better, buy this new set, add it to your deck. This new set comes out, you buy these new cards, put them into your deck. The format's changing, it's growing. The video game stuff is just not there, and you've hit it on the head there. There are some avenues that they have that they could really, if they focus more attention on the YouTube channels, or maybe there's a Pokemon Company Twitch channel where they have bi-weekly. I'm talking about like a weekly podcast kind of thing, or a Twitch cast or something, where they could do something.
Doesn't Nintendo have like the game house? What is it? Playhouse, or they have that house thing. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the Treehouse, the Nintendo Treehouse. That's what it's called. I think they use that to kind of talk about things like that, and Pokemon could definitely have something like that. But something that I just thought of related to what you were saying, Mike, is that video game sells itself, right? The game cartridge basically sells itself. They don't need competitive Pokemon to sell the video game. On the flip side, the cards are kind of reliant on the card game, on the competitive side, to sell the cards.
No, you said people collect earlier. You called me out.
Yes, they do collect, but the collectors, I think, is a smaller offshoot. And those people collect because they remember those cards as kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, TCG is very much inherently competitive because that's what those cards are for. Yeah, you could play casually. There's other formats. You could play with your friends. Like, when I first started playing, we didn't even know the rules, and we were just playing and had no idea what we were doing, and it was hilarious. Like, we would make up our own rules. The video game, on the other hand, I could play through the entire storyline and never have any idea about the competitive, and it doesn't matter because I love Pokemon and I'll still buy the video game. There's nothing that the company is getting out of competitive video game right now, whereas competitive card game is getting them more people to buy their cards, buy their merchandise, to buy their product, right? So I think that may be one of the kind of detrimental things there, is that the Game Freak and the TCPI Japan aren't really seeing a value behind making all this extra video game content until there's, a kind of profitability from it, as it were.
That's a good point, because once I've bought the game's
That's
bought.
it. Exactly. And this is something that TCG players say all the time. Well, I'm constantly having to spend money on new cards or sleeves or deck boxes or dice or whatever. And so, I'm a commodity in myself because I'm constantly spending money on the game. Video game players, you guys buy a DS and you buy a cartridge. Some of you don't even buy either of those things. You borrow them from other people, and then that's it. And then there's the players that don't even buy any of that. They just play on Smoggin. They play on Showdown, and it's like, okay, you guys aren't making the community or the company money at all, kind of like, and yes, there is a brand awareness from it, but like I said, the video game sells itself. The Pokemon brand sells the video game. They don't need the competitive side to sell the video game, whereas the card game
go to any GameStop with a game release. For every competitive player there picking up their one game, or actually if you're a competitive guy, you're probably picking up 2 copies, one sun, one moon, or whatever it is, right? For every one competitive player picking up their product, there's at least 4 or 5 people that are picking up the game. Well, I said at least, that's just super conservative, right?
Yeah.
So at least 4 or 5, 10 more people that are picking up the game. They're going to play through it because they love it, and they played every game since red and yellow and blue, and but you'll never see them at a league, and you'll never see them at a tournament because they just play the game, they love it, that's it. So there's that group of people that, like, you love this video game so much. Can we entice you to come over and play in the organized play environment?
Right.
But Jen, you bring up a good point. Is what's the financial incentive for the Pokemon Company to bring these players into organized play?
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't at that point.
I mean, the company kind of did a little bit of this, and I know some organizers were doing it as well during the 20th anniversary. They were kind of going to conventions. They were at PAX West, PAX East, I think PAX South, and a couple of the other. They were at Comic-Con. They were at San Diego Comic-Con. The company had a booth, and then they staffed it with like local judges and organizers and things like that. And I know that Patricia, the organizer out on in Arizona, does San Diego Comic-Con every year. She has like their game room, and she does like a huge push. And I think to kind of tap into what the regionals organizers can do is there's a lot of people going to these Comic-Cons and these PAXs and things like that and bringing their DS for like the street pass and stuff like that. And so if you had casual events going on in a game room at these events, you can kind of get the word out there, and it's really about community outreach at that point. And June and Nikki talked about it a little bit last week about going into the schools and doing that kind of outreach and reaching out to your local casual players that way. And I know, Alex, I don't know if you've ever been to Rebecca's, bringing up Rebecca again, I don't know if you've ever been to her league, but she has a very extensive league, and I know she has quite a few video game players there.
Yeah, I've been to her league a couple of times just to like visit her, hang out, and yeah, she gets quite a number of people there. She actually has a pretty sizable league, and I do think that leagues are like super worth talking about because like they're comparable to what I said earlier, Smash having weeklies. It's something where every weekend you can go meet up with those people that have that common interest and just play. Like people, they just play pickup games, and also like I feel like on the TCG side, I don't know about the high level people because I can't speak for them, but it seems like TCG I see a lot more pickup games. Like I see a lot of people just playing on the side, like, oh, I'm out of the tournament, it's the second day, and they're just over there on a table playing.
Yeah.
Whereas in VG, I see a lot less people just playing games just for fun. Yeah, might see like people doing multi battles or just doing like crazy stuff, but like you see a lot less people just playing. Like, all right, hey, you want to play a VGC battle right now? No, like I don't see that as much.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to like back to the Smash weeklies, like we need to make the smaller tournaments more worthwhile, and honestly like more often, I guess. I don't know, like we need a reason for people to keep coming back to them because it builds communities, and those communities are gonna keep people coming back. It's the reason that I still play, is because I've made so many friends through Pokemon, and I want to see them as often as possible, and so that's why the locals are so important to me.
Right, absolutely, I agree, definitely. Mike, you want to start wrapping up, or do we have any more topics we got to cover?
Yeah, I mean...
Probably Mike's bedtime.
It's definitely past Mike's bedtime.
True. I mean, it's very true. I am a very old man. I have to go take my prune juice and get ready for bed. Trim my nose and ear hair, and I'm good to go.
Ew.
But yeah, I think for the most part we've hit on a lot of the major topics. We've discussed a lot of those things kind of at 100,000-foot level, right? Because I mean, any one of those topics we could probably spend much more time getting really in depth and talking about some things. And we've kind of talked about why we think they're impacting, and we've talked a little bit about things we can do to help out with that. Do we have the answers? No, I don't think there is one answer. There's no magic silver bullet. There's just a lot of things that we need to do as a community to kind of push this forward, and I think it has to start from the community level. We have to get our own ducks in line, the proverbial ducks, right? And it starts with the players that are having success, like you mentioned earlier, Alex. It's players like you and others that are having success, sharing their success, writing articles, talking to the younger players, talking to other older players that are not having as much success, sharing team information when you can. I mean, I understand that there's times that you're still holding on to team information, but sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing that fun, pushing that forward. From an organizer perspective, we need to reevaluate costs and cost benefit and providing experience versus product, especially when products typically drive up cost without giving the video game player that much for the return, right? So and that's one of the reasons I went to my $5 mid-seasons is I'm just trying to cover my costs and not lose my pants while trying to give you the opportunity, one, to earn CP, and two, have fun, right? See the friends that you have, watch a stream, have some fun, hang out for a weekend, and have a good time. And then collectively as a community, we need to kind of bring this positivity forward. And I think we need to come together as a group and try to collectively bring our ideas and our concerns forward to the company and saying, these are the things that I think we can do to help grow this community, and try to expand our reach and what we're doing.
Absolutely. I do want to make a mention of one thing that was said on Reddit and also echoed on Twitter. As an established player or a player that's been with the community for a long time, to be more welcoming to casual players, maybe don't get as salty if you get a freeze or a burn or a flinch or something like that. Lose gracefully, and I think this is something that kids are taught at an early age in sports, to be a good sport and to lose with dignity. And it's not really carried over into the video game community for the most part, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people get really angry or like frustrated or just like visibly irate because they've gotten a flinch or their Pokemon, the RNG, the roll went high or whatever it is. And, it's, you want these players to come back and you want to have the high attendance. Again, we keep saying it. The casual players is where the attendance is at. Like, yes, the things that we talk about will maintain the large, not large, but the 100 or so competitive, super competitive players that we have. But that's not going to get us the numbers. It's not going to get us the prizes that we want. And, kind of showing a little bit of respect to the people that are playing around you and maybe taking that loss in stride and then going into the bathroom, into a stall, and then flipping out or whatever so nobody can see you or hear you doing it, Just learn to lose with a little bit of grace and dignity, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
That's my
anything you want to wrap up with, Alex?
No, I think we hit on a lot of points, and honestly, like you said, we kind of covered it from afar because there's so much depth here that if I brought up anything else, we'd probably just never stop talking. So
there we go.
Well, I appreciate your time tonight, Alex. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody that's tuned into both of our channels.
Yep, thank you so much.
We really appreciate it, and thank you for participating in the chats and online leading up to this episode. And as always, if you have comments, feedbacks about this episode, the channel, the show, or even this topic or any other topics that you want to see us cover, or you want to kind of elaborate a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us, direct message in those collaborative chat sessions or whatever. Reach out to us. We're here for you guys. We want to try to bring these issues to light, and even if we can't solve them, at least we can start talking about them and try to get these things out into the light and try to move forward as a community.
Absolutely. Definitely don't want there to be a situation where people feel ignored or they feel that their voice is not being heard. That's what Mike and I started this for, so that you guys at least feel like somebody's listening to you. We're trying to have some kind of impact, whether it's a small one, one that reaches a regional level or, maybe up to the TPCI level, because we may not be employed by the company, but we work closely with the company, and so we're doing our best. So, keep the feedback coming. Absolutely.
All right. So if there's nothing else from you guys,
No, that's I'm
thanks
good.
again for tuning in for episode 12. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week for lucky number 13.
Oh, no. Can we skip 13 and go right to 14, please? I hate the number 13, please. But thank you again, you guys, and thank you to Alex for coming on with us. It was
Thanks for having me.
pleasure.
I hope everybody enjoyed listening to me. I do talk a lot, so.
That's okay, not as much as she does. So I think
Shut
we're all
up,
good.
Mike.
And maybe we'll have you back on again sometime with another topic.
Would love to. Absolutely.
Right. Thanks again,
Absolutely.
everybody, and have a great night.
Have a good night,
Till
guys.
next week.
Thank you.
Alola.
Aloha.